Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Before we get into the video, Pure did specifically let me know that there may be potential spoilers for Donkey Kong Bonanza in here, and suggested that, he'll leave it up to me, but once we get to that part of the video, I can choose to either continue or not, and then maybe later on during our playthrough of the Donkey Kong series, we can maybe go into that a bit more blind. So more likely than not, this won't be the full video from his channel. If you do want to see the full video, please go and check out the original video. Link to that is at the very top of the description, like always. And you should do that anyways if you were watching this reaction to make sure you go support Pierre. I'm not sure exactly what we're gonna cover about King K. Rool here. We did do a video on him, but that was mostly his incarnation in Smash. We did meet him in the first Donkey Kong Country, where he did actually get me with the fake credits. I did get got. Potentially a lot more lore behind his character as well. So, yeah, let's get into this. And those are chonky cartridges.
You are just an aspect of the world that wants to see it get worse in a way that is primal and not cognitive.
Represents what happens when we forget we are not the main characters in reality.
Nintendo's gonna assign K. Rool to the dustbins of history.
The last time King K. Rool made a mainline Donkey Kong game appearance was 1999. There's been a whole new generation of gamers.
My boy
since
belongs
then.
to the past now, that's just how it is. I don't know if I'm ever gonna see him again.
Yeah, that was the unfortunate truth that we did learn about him in Pierre's other video. That he never really appeared after that, and honestly, Donkey Kong as a whole never really had much going on with the series up until Bonanza, which I'm really glad that it finally came back. The little demo that we played on stream was super fun, so I'm looking forward to getting into it someday, plus hoping that more like that game comes out in the future. Now that I think about it, I just remembered this. I was actually going to be in this video. I believe Pierre had said that he was going to interview me as like somebody completely outside of the Donkey Kong fandom, sort of getting into it, my thoughts and whatnot on the games. And that's kind of the entire reason why we started the Donkey Kong streams together. Unfortunately, it took me a little bit of time to get my Switch, and then after that we discovered that Thailand didn't even have a Nintendo Switch Online at the time, but they were already selling Switches, which just kind of baffles me. Regardless though, we're getting to play the games now, so it all worked out.
I've been waiting a long time for this moment.
This dude.
King K. Rool is the bad crocodile who steals Donkey Kong's bananas. That was all he was ever meant to be. That's all you need to know. A final boss patterned in Bowser's mold, who was such an afterthought to Donkey Kong Country, they didn't even think of what the K stood for. Keith, I guess? It hardly ended up that way. Developers and fans glommed onto this character, pushing him further and further to the absolute heights of difficulty and absurdity.
Oh,
the Crocodile
goodness.
Pirate King developed perhaps more rapidly and more grandly than any of his classic era contemporaries. And that's fantastic in and of itself. But it's what he did after that truly sets him apart. King K. Rool's story is one of the most unique in all of video games, and one of the hardest to approach from the outside.
Really?
A character who lived at large as one of the most celebrated villains from his company, relegated to irrelevance and disdain, not through any fault of his own, but the gaming landscape around him shifting. And what it meant to claw his way back for a fan base who hoped against hope that what they loved about their favorite series could be shared once again. This is the story of how fans changed the course of a multi-million-dollar franchise. How the spirit of what they cared for came to be embodied in a villain who was never made to be a star, yet shone so brightly. And how he pushed himself not just as a throwback to yesteryear, but an evolving menace of a character who embodied the same creed as his real-life crew. Never say die. This is the Comeback King's epitaph. This is the eternal legacy of King K. Rool.
Hope for
Alright.
your sake, you're right this time.
Let's see it.
The origins of the Kremling crew are as slapdash as any by British developer Rare. The earliest known crocodile is this biker dude from a follow-up to Rare's Battletoads game Warhogs, where pretty much everything we know about it is what you're seeing on screen. Eventually, the
never came
concept
out?
of what if mean crocodiles was transferred to a point-and-click adventure concept entitled Johnny Blastoff and the Kremling Armada. Here, the name of the Kremlings was established, a love of piracy was instilled within them, and the first images of their leadership emerged. A burly thug, Captain Crash, the wily opportunity seeker, Corporal Crizzle, and a leader figure sporting a massive frame, ornamented bracers, a flowing cape, and a prominent crown. Crud. This project would also fall through, but when Rare got approval from Nintendo to utilize one of their properties in a brand new cutting-edge video game, eventually choosing Donkey Kong, they had just the villain in mind to face off against the reimagined Prime Primate, Wario.
Wait, what?
But after seeing the pitch of Wario stealing Mario's time machine and using a future gun to try to take over Nintendo Land, Nintendo requested new villains take his place. Enough work had been done.
Okay. Interesting. So Rare developed the game. Does that mean that Donkey Kong was already an IP under Nintendo and was sort of just given to Rare to develop a game around that IP? Now I'm a bit confuzzled on my history here, my gaming history. But regardless, it's really cool to see these previous projects that these developers had worked on sort of getting reused and made into new ideas. Even though those previous games probably fell through and never got fully developed, at the very least their legacy somehow lives on in Donkey Kong Country.
On the Kremling crew, they'd make for solid adaptation. In the dark of the night, the Kremlings descended upon Congo Jungle, stealing Donkey Kong's banana hoard from under his nose, and easily dispatching the young simian set to guard the banana bounty, Diddy Kong.
Yeah.
Upon waking up, a furious Donkey Kong promised that he would find his little buddy and hunt the Kremlings down through every corner of his island until every last banana was safe and accounted for. However, the Kremlings had thoroughly plundered Donkey Kong Island, its mines stripped of ore, its ancient temples uncovered with their image chiseled in stone, and even a factory built atop the mountains of Gorilla Glacier, polluting the nearby waters and noted as the Kremlings' crowning achievement.
The Kremlings representing this disharmony with nature in comparison to the Kongs. And the Kongs live this very, to use a boomer reference, Gilligan's Island lifestyle where everything is made of wood and almost out of the earth itself, whereas the Kremlings impose their will and their manifest destiny upon any land they encroach on.
Destiny.
DK and
My question is, how did the Kremlings create all of these facilities under Donkey Kong's nose this entire time? Was bro just that lazy? Was he just snoozing around in his banana room and then those bananas got stolen somehow and then he noticed all the things that happened around him on the island? Because I don't think you could just straight up build a factory out of nothing. That's going to take some time, even for them, I'm sure. That was also a neat little detail. I never noticed that in the temple section that they had carved their own heads into their own likeness into the temple. Probably because I was fighting for my life trying to get through those levels every single day that we streamed the game, so yeah, a lot of the background went unnoticed by me.
Diddy will face a bunch of their generals, all of which are very easy and incredibly underwhelming boss encounters. However,
The majority of them,
every
yeah.
time you beat one of these bosses, a ship draws closer
I just actually kind of embarrassing because I did struggle with a few of them.
on the world map. And once Donkey
never
Kong
noticed
has
the ship.
liberated every inch of the island, the Kremling flagship, the Gangplank Galleon, finally docks offshore. And upon its deck, hidden for the entire game and in the manual,
The
DK
actual
comes face to
King K.
face with his
Rool.
arch enemy.
Not understanding why they were keeping it a mystery, just because I assumed he was going to be a more corpulent version of the other Kremlings. When he first dropped down, I remember saying to my friend who I was playing the game with, "Is that it?"
K. Rool is certainly the biggest, fastest, and strongest member of his crew. With gold-gilded belly, flowing cape, and pronounced crown, he's putting on as many airs as he can to show his absolute regality, and is one of the few bosses that DK and Diddy can't instantly jump on and beat up.
I think the DKC
Yeah.
fight is like perfect. I mean, he's throwing his crown at you, which is kind of silly, but it's so difficult that it's like, while this is really funny and goofy, it's still kind of terrifying. You kind of got those like, oh gosh, one wrong move and I'm toast and I got to restart the whole fight jitters.
It's very
Exactly. I 100% agree. When I was going through the fight, the mechanics itself were quite simple. There wasn't really anything surprising that he would throw at you outside of the whole, like, oh, the fake credits thing. But that's only going to get you once. As long as you know the pattern and where to be and how to move at what angle, like, you're fine. But in another sense, the simplicity of the fight also makes it so much more frustrating when you fail. Because while it is simple, the execution of it, the actual execution of it, is so easy to fumble.
clearly a giant spike right at the end of the game in terms of difficulty. He is so much harder than any of the other world bosses before him. Every other character in that game has either one action, or if you're a boss, maybe you have two actions. And K. Rool has the hat throw, he's got a big bounce,
He's got the
he's got
cannonballs
so
and the
many
bounce,
little tricks. If you've played through the game enough times, you'll see those little things that get you to start predicting what's going to come next. But nothing in the game besides K. Rool really asks you to do that. I think it's a legitimate design practice, learning what the boss is about to do and where they're going to put a hitbox on the screen so I can get out of the way. And K. Rool is that kind of boss in a game that is not that kind of game.
It starts with a lot of like whimsy, but it builds into something that's very intense. And that's because King K. Rool, for all of his quirky, deranged charm, has this layer of malice about him.
But managed to get through, and after a combined 6 hits, the credits start to roll.
No.
Probably like 6 or 7.
No.
I wasn't a bit avid reader. I was playing video games, and so he went and instantly, bam, got me.
Yeah. I think I managed to avoid the first jump, but he did get me around the second time. Oh man, I was so happy that the fight was finally over because it took me a few tries to even get there to the midsection. That was such BS, man. But I should have known, obviously. Games back then, they had stuff like this a lot. Like, another example I can think of off the top of my head was, I think his name was White. He was like a Fatal Fury boss in one of their games, one of the later ones. But whenever you beat him, it would show the, the fight is over screen, but he would, during that screen, shoot one last projectile at you, which you would have to, I believe, jump over. And if you didn't successfully do that, then you would just get one shot and have to do the entire fight all over again, enemy. This is SNK developing the game, so you know that fighting game boss is going to be super difficult.
Video game credits didn't used to be in the standardized form we see today. Oftentimes, development teams would be hidden under cute pseudonyms to prevent other studios from poaching talent. Occasionally, no one
Really?
would show up in the game's credits at all. Castlevania
Damn.
1 famously starring Boris Karloff's and the hero Simon Belmondo. K. Rool takes that simple feeling of
Don't know anything about
safety after a
Castlevania.
particularly nasty phase and uses DKC's slapstick sensibilities before beating the player over the head with it. As simple
It's kind of interesting that this was normal practice back in the day to not credit people. People were, I guess companies back then were super scared of other companies taking their talent, but like, you can have people working on several different projects, no? I think that's usually how it goes. It's like not crediting your artist because you're afraid that other companies are going to use that artist for their art, but like, so many freelance artists do art for basically everything, anything that fits their style. Not sure if it was an of the times thing or an actual concern, because I've never really been a part of that industry. But I think the first time I heard mention of a concept like this was in the recent Yu-Gi-Oh! Iceberg video. Well, actually, now I think about it, I've recorded that video previous to this recording, but I'm probably going to release it after, so a little wrinkle in the timeline there. But I believe Bumbles talked about how there was a theory that they don't credit the artists for Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards because the company was afraid other card games or other companies would take those artists, and they still don't do it nowadays, which really sucks because some of the art is amazing and you want to see more from the artist, but you don't know who the artist is, so... I don't know. It's just a weird practice to me.
Is K. Rool crediting himself as supreme commander of the game is, and how funny it might be to imagine falling for it? Dozens did, and immortalized the fight against K. Rool as one they would never forget. And after 3 more hits, the Conqueror goes down for good. But this fight established a bunch about the Crocodilian Cutthroat. He's a pirate, plundering various isles for their greatest treasure and leaving nothing in his wake. He's a boss that takes up the entirety of his arena, leaving precious little safe space for you to hide. He's quite a bit tougher than any boss before him in both durability and how much is required to take him out. And ultimately, he's pretty funny, filled with personality, self-assuredness, and a comedic twinge combined with his intimidating stature to set
the way that he looks at the screen, being like, you see this shit? Oh, it just rubs salt into the wound even more when you get got by the crown. You're just so focused. Like, at a certain point after struggling through the battle, you're gonna be so focused on the later stages that you just end up forgetting the first stage. Then you get hit.
Separate him from the other lumbering beasts rounding off games.
I can almost recognize the original iteration of King K. Rool as kind of a sarcastic take on what you think a video game boss is in 1994. If that was the intention, they pivoted and they made him into something that I think far surpassed even what they had initially conceived.
Donkey Kong Country would go on to sell, not too bad, third highest selling game on the console, turned the tide of the console war against Sega in North America. It was okay. And as K. Rool and the Kremlin crew proved to be memorable foes that a lot of the dev team was fond of for their threatening yet bumbling appearances, they were set up for some quick follow-ups.
I think it was definitely a great decision to design them the way that they did. Plus, I can understand why the game sold so well, because even playing it nowadays as a platformer, I think it's really solid. It has some really good fundamentals and controls a lot better than some of the other platformers that I've tried in my own time. And to think, like, of the time that this game was made in, there probably wouldn't have been a lot of competition within that space. Maybe, I guess, outside of Mario. But yeah, it's just a solid game. And they only improved it in Donkey Kong Country 2. At least from what I've noticed from how far we've gotten into the game. Still, I've yet to beat the final boss, which is obviously gotta be King K. Rool.
Before a proper sequel to Donkey Kong Country was made, a mini-sequel was developed to give the franchise some presence on the Game Boy.
The plot of Donkey Kong Land is a metatextual breakdown into madness. Donkey Kong Land is the only handheld counterpart to a console game that has the characters debating about whether or not they can have a successful adventure on less powerful hardware. These are characters who know they are video game heroes. Cranky Kong calls up K. Rool and says, hey, do you want to do it again? I'm giving you permission. You can do it again. I have a bet with Donkey Kong that he can't do it on the Game Boy, so here's your shot. It's almost like it's Rare poking fun at the already well-established conventions of video games, and that's why it works so well.
Eventually, K. Rool is confronted, living it up in Big Ape City. And
Big Ape City?
He's so little! Hi, little guy! But this little adventure would serve as a precursor for what's to come. Now, you would see the true terror and force that the Kremlin crew could provide.
I've kidnapped that lumbering fool Donkey Kong, and you will never see him again.
Consumed by thoughts of revenge, the now Captain K. Rool took a bounty far greater than any horde. Donkey Kong himself. Holding the Big Ape ransom in exchange for the banana horde the Kongs worked so hard to reclaim and their effective surrender. Diddy Kong and his girlfriend Dixie would have to prove themselves true video game heroes, venturing onto enemy turf in a rescue mission to save their big buddy and defeat this cutthroat crew in an even more difficult adventure. Crocodile Isle wasn't nearly the island paradise that DK's self-shaped home was, and what were once mere signs of corruption and plunder were made fully manifest.
In the first game, you're defending your homeland. You're in these lush jungles, you're in the mountains, and then you go to this wacky little Kremling Isle where everybody's just greasy and mean. I love the way that you start on the broken pirate ship and work your way up.
It's just more extreme than Donkey Kong Island in every way. You usually don't get a lava area until the end of a video game. It's like, here, second world. That just tells you how hostile and mean this entire island is going to be.
It's both a wasteland of toxic sludge and complete disregard for nature and the environment, but there's also another side to it as well. There's the dark side of nature, the danger that nature represents. I mean, there is beauty to be found in Crocodile Isle despite it all.
They got a theme park, but it's not like there's evidence of them ruining their own homeland with factories and stuff. Mostly they've seemed to have set those up elsewhere. It just seems like this place that is their homeland just never was very accommodating for them. They had to go out and essentially pillage to get what they needed.
Every level is...
All of these people are so much smarter than I am, not gonna lie. I will fully admit this. Because, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, all their points are very valid with how the map has been designed, like the overworld map, which is something that I kind of gloss over every single time that I play the game. So I guess from now on, I'll definitely take more of a look at it. But really, just from that, you can tell a lot about the Kremlings, the way they live, and what they've had to do in order to survive in this sort of environment. Or honestly, their effects on the environment to potentially have made it like this. Also got a little bit of a sneak peek in that bonus level, I would assume, where you're playing as Squawks, I believe his name is, and the wind is one left to right. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that at all.
More threatening, more dangerous, more difficult than anything Diddy has faced before.
What is this?
You slowly break through the scaly scallywags. Dixie and her boyfriend climb all the way to the top of K. Rool's keep, ready to rescue the Big Ape. And the moment they arrive, K. Rool pulls the big lug up right before their eyes. Sorry, idiots. I have an airship now.
Oh my
Go through
God.
a whole nother world before you can close out the game.
No! The princess is in another castle, no!
And while that whole nother world ends up just being one level before the boss fight, well, if you just take a look at Wrinkly Kong's helpful advice...
This time there can be no mistakes.
K. Rool's second duel opens with him smacking Donkey Kong around like a piñata before shooting him with a giant gun 3 times.
Brother!
This blunderbuss is everything that the boss fight revolves around. K. Rool skating around with it like a jet engine, shooting out cannonballs, and even using it as an oversized vacuum to get a Kong in command grab range and knocking them right out of the fight. Captain K. Rool retains a lot from his original fight. It takes 9 total hits to bring him down, and the method of harming him stays consistent throughout the entire battle. The issue is, he's gonna do everything possible in order to make it as difficult as can be getting there.
The way that like Donkey Kong is like tied up, the way everybody's freaking out, he's not just like throwing his crown at you, he is shooting a gun at you. It's absolutely crazy, and I did feel scared, but also like I'm giggling at the same time. It's just, he's such a funny and intimidating character at the exact same time.
Phase 1 involves the captain shooting out spiked cannonballs, limiting the amount of space you have to jump over him. with the added kicker that
goodness, don't you love bosses with area denial? I guess depending on the game, it's fine, but yeah, in this platformer, I'm definitely gonna struggle with this one.
Every time you jam the Croc's blaster, the backfire hurls the cannonball right back out at you, giving the captain an accidental measure of retaliation every time he takes a shot.
Yeah.
But once he reaches the second phase, K. Rool decides it's much more efficient to simply shoot you in the face. But rather than just do that again, but more, K. Rool changes his patterns for his next hits. The second involving bouncing balls all with different jump arcs, and the third in a weird knuckleball-like spiral seen nowhere else in the game. But say you get through that, okay, K. Rool sees you're getting used to his tricks, so he's going to shoot you with magic smoke that freezes you in place as he slowly crawls his way over. And then he turns invisible for some reason.
What the
Buccaneer
hell?
boss then follows it up with a super slowing gas cloud before finally firing off some control reversing gas and teleporting all around so you get sucked right into his cannon.
Oh my goodness.
He even changes up the timing of his final shot to make it extra likely that you'll have won the fight, but choke at the very last second to a literal stray bullet. Captain K. Rool is a full-on evolution of his kingly debut. A pattern-based marathon, each hit bringing about a new challenge expected to mess a player up before they move on and trip over their tail again.
You know, this isn't just big boss hits you hard with weapon. It's K. Rool killed me because what do you mean these clouds made me run directly into the blunderbuss? The fact that he has so many kind of gotcha tricks and no two gotcha tricks are the same, I think really stands the test of time and resonates for a lot of people.
And when he goes down and gives Diddy a creme coin as a reward, he tries to get up again during the monkey's victory dance. Unfortunately, he failed to notice the 800-pound gorilla in the room who freed himself and gets smashed right out of his airship and falls down his entire island.
Damn.
And gets eaten by sharks.
Oh, holy shit.
But the captain's story doesn't end in Davy Jones' locker. Throughout the game, Diddy and Dixie can find bonus barrels, and at each one's end is one of K. Rool's self-styled creme coins. These can be paid to Clubba, a burly gatekeeper defending a barrel made of gold. The underground Kremling Lost World.
Now hear this, landlubbers.
But what about the lore?
Clubba, and the Crosby Bridge is gonna cost you many pieces of 8.
But the Kremling crew isn't entirely loyal to their king. K. Rool is a very charismatic leader, but a lot of his control is based on fear and strength.
Clump becomes
Fear
cannon,
always works.
Crusha becomes Cruncha, critters become clumps. That just shows not only are they willing to go along with K. Rool's delusions, maybe, but also the fact that Kremlings are very malleable.
I really can't help but wonder if they're really going through with this because they really have a passion for that, or if they're just doing it because they're scared and they're just listening to a madman.
Give Clubba enough doubloons, proving yourself worthy, and he'll let the so-called mortal enemies of the Kremlings through to their most holy sanctum.
Splice me, main brace, it's the monkeys. Captain K. Rool treats us rotten. I hope ye scupper his plans.
And after scouring every inch of Crocodile Isle, conquering the Lost World entirely, K. Rool clawed his way out of the ocean to recover.
Oh my
Guns
goodness.
still waterlogged from his struggle to
Not
survive,
again.
he sees you at the crocodile core of his empire, and still weakened, fights with everything he's got. He's only got one hit point, but he's gonna make it count, firing his gun off 57 times before he tosses out a cannonball you can hit him back with. And after shooting out the trickiest patterns he can possibly offer, K. Rool's backfire shoots him directly into the Kremling source.
No!
The massive pool of spiraling energy in the center of the isle.
What is happening?
And his crew's lack of faith in him comes back to bite them.
Just that image of DK, Diddy, and Dixie just sitting there in silence, sort of holding each other, watching as their enemy's homeland just craters into the ocean.
Everything that the player had mastered and bonded with, completely gone in a flash of light. K. Rool makes a raft to drift away on, laughing maniacally as his kingdom is reduced to nothing.
It just sort of becomes the moment that defines K. Rool as a character. This is the thing that he did or caused to happen. Going forward, he seems to have this increased focus on destruction. If he sees something that he can destroy and that he can rot, he couldn't just let the Kongs go.
Okay, based off of that analysis though, I can kind of have an idea of what he's going to be doing in Bonanza. And I guess some people might say, like, even me knowing that he's in Bonanza might be a bit of a spoiler, because I don't think they really marketed that specifically. But as somebody new to Donkey Kong, I kind of just assumed he would be there. But I can imagine that sort of sense of destruction that he enjoys is definitely going to play a lot into, I guess, the mechanics of Donkey Kong Bonanza with how malleable the entire terrain is. And I guess the themes of Void Kong as well.
Peaceful days would once again reach DK Isle as K. Rool licked his wounds. Until one day, Diddy left his girlfriend a note saying that he and DK were looking for a new adventure, never to return in the days that followed. Dixie tracked her boyfriend and his himbo to the northern Cremisphere.
Okay, but, you know, that's cool. We're getting, like, a new main protagonist in each single game. But with the country games, you always have a partner, so who's going to be Dixie's partner throughout this adventure? Or is it just going to be her?
Discovering a new batch of Kremlings were hatching a scheme, beginning to mechanize not just the world around them, but wildlife and themselves. Augmenting local bees with buzzsaws and bazooka-wielding troops with eyes for snakes.
What the hell is all this? Did we really just go full Dr. Eggman on this?
Sniping. They formed a new factory headquarters, the Isle of Mechanos. Levels now feature poison pipelines, derelict factories with trained snipers at the ready, a giant ripsaw chasing you through the entire level as they deforest as much as possible. But control may have gotten away from these Kremlings. The carbine owls with flame cannons are said to keep the factory workers on task at all times or else. And they've found a new leader to swear fealty to. A mechanized overseer named Chaos.
In the first appearance...
Not gonna lie, when he said Chaos, that's exactly what I thought of. Was it the Stranger of Paradise, something like that? Know nothing about Final Fantasy except the meme.
Of the Kremlings, they are a military force. In DKC 2, you get to see where the Kremlings live, and compared to the Kong's natural setting, they are a much more capitalistic and industrial culture. Really, though, it's DKC 3 where you start seeing engaging in just mechanical ways of interfering with nature.
Dixie and the all-new Kiddy Kong would battle through the Kremling forces, making them retreat to the heart of their operation, Chaos Castle, where they would face off against the Metal Overlord and... Pay no attention to the croc behind the curtain. This... No.
It's me.
So, K. Rool's plan after blowing up his homeland is to go into hiding, become a mad scientist named Baron K. Roolenstein.
I support this.
Seal away the land's guardian deity, the Banana Bird Queen, with his Kremling magic that...
The Banana Bird Queen? You know, at least we're sticking to our themes in Donkey Kong.
He has now kidnapped Donkey Kong and Diddy, put them inside of a giant robot, hypnotize them into thinking they're power-hungry madmen, and use their brainwaves to power the giant robot and control the Kremling crew from the shadows of his castle lair so fearsome, even Link from Link's Awakening said, "Nah, I'm good," and left it alone.
Wait, is some cheeky lad called Link? Good for you, Link. Get the hell out of here. This is some crazy stuff happening right now.
And when Dixie and Kitty beat his big bad bot, K. Rool reveals that he made his world-conquering robot out of his wife's finest pots and pans. She's gonna kill him!
Even as a little kid, I did not believe he actually had a wife.
I don't think so.
He just was trying to make himself look less pathetic. He was like, yeah, well, I'm married. I get to go bang my hot wife after this.
You know, valid. Can't blame the guy. He's like, yeah, my wife's gonna be so mad, man. I'm a married man. What can I say? I'm just that handsome, you know? He's got it going on.
Donkey Kong Country 3 is a ludicrously silly story, leaning into the most cartoonish tropes it possibly can, even tossing in a Scooby-Doo reference for good measure. After a strange...
Was it Donkey Kong Country 3 that was a little bit more divisive amongst fans? If that's the case, then I can probably see why, but my memory may be mistaken.
Poignant note to end the last game on, this is an incredibly goofy time. But DKC3 was more of a fun little road trip of a game. Development wasn't handled by the same internal team in Rare that made the first two games. This was a team that learned from the example of the prior two countries, and wanted to go ham and have fun with it.
This is where K. Rool's at his goofiest, especially where he's like, trying to fly with his hands. There is something scary and creepy about being in some sort of Frankenstein's lab. And the older I get, the more I appreciate his characterization there as like, he's just like doing his little project in the garage. It's the British mundane, and it's such a vibe.
And the Baron still offers up the hardest boss fight in the entire game, of course, choosing not to interact with the Kongs directly and instead use massive shock coils and a helicopter pack to limit their movement and options.
Holy.
The same sort of challenge is offered here. K. Rool is still making the world actively worse around him, but it's all played for laughs.
As you do.
Punctuated by the very end, where Dixie manages to free the Banana Bird Queen from her imprisonment, and they get revenge on the scaly scientist by dropping a giant egg on his head. Utterly humiliated to the last.
We did it!
And those comedy chops would serve him well if he wanted so badly to emulate a Saturday morning cartoon villain. Why not become one?
Lies and fibs, cheats
and steals. My God.
Treacherous villainy makes me squeal.
This reminds me of how we initially got into the Donkey Kong lore. With the Donkey Kong cartoon. The CGI 3D animated one, wow. Oh, man, I choose the best entry points into series.
Never tip, I butt in line. I never clean the dishes and it suits me fine. I'm so pleased and such a sleaze. This bad guy thing's a breeze.
Produced by Nelvana Limited, Donkey Kong Country, the TV show, was one of the first breakthroughs in 3D technology for a television market. And it's cute. It's a children's TV show about Donkey Kong trying to protect the legendary Crystal Coconut from the clutches of the Kremling army, led by the dastardly King K. Rool.
I'm interested in power. Supreme power. Unlimited power that will make me powerful.
There's an average of about 2 musical numbers per episode that are better than they should be. DK is a bumbling sitcom bachelor. This animation will live in my head forever.
Oh my goodness, what the hell?
But it very easily leaned into the more comedic elements that the franchise exhibited. And that was especially true of its villain.
K. Rool's depiction in the cartoon was always very reminiscent of a character like Scar or even Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective. I liked that he was kind of this pompous, theatrical villain.
Canadian theater.
I much prefer these type of villains, to be honest. And I think that's what gives the Donkey Kong series its personality. Because otherwise, if you made him like, you know, menacing and evil and whatnot, he probably wouldn't be as beloved as he is today. And I don't know if that would really fit the vibe of the series as a whole. The general appeal of it is definitely going to be more towards the more fun-loving side.
Actor Benedict Campbell provided the speaking and singing voice for K. Rool, giving the character an overly bougie, holier-than-thou affectation mixed in with an easily triggered and explosive temper.
You took a wrong turn the day you were born, you lunkhead piece of wasted brain man!
Even though this is like a more silly portrayal, because it was, you know, a cartoon kind of aimed for children, it still showed his, I guess, insanity. That he was kind of a crazy guy. He would come up with these crazy plans, and he would go through with them to the best of his ability.
Filled with joy and rapture at the very sight of your loneliness, Holly. 10 out of 10.
It's hilarious, especially with his voice. His voice is just like this awful British guy. who thinks he's way too important.
This would be the defining portrayal of the contentious Croc. Not for English-speaking territories necessarily, but abroad.
Growing up in Canada, the Donkey Kong Country cartoon was actually fairly popular here. When one of our children's television networks, Teletoon, launched, which was basically the Canadian equivalent to Cartoon Network, one of the shows they actually launched with was the Donkey Kong Country cartoon.
Donkey Kong Country was pushed heavily in France, the cartoon receiving its own block, La Planète de Donkey Kong, to air on public television. And the Japanese release saw a star-studded cast, including the likes of Koichi Yamadera, Megumi Hayashibara, Ryusei Nakao, and Banana Ice, who has only ever performed music and played Funky Kong and whose stage name is Banana Ice. K. Rool, incidentally, was played by Jotaro Kujo from the OVA.
Oh my god.
Donkey Kong Country, the children's TV series, was a phenomenon, sporting multiple merch lines, board games, a manga series, and a collectible card game based primarily on the show over any other source.
There was a narrative in place among Western fans that Donkey Kong Country or Super Donkey Kong didn't have a following in Japan, and we know that to be false because we can now communicate so readily with the Japanese fan base. We all have the same basic understanding and appreciation of it.
K. Rool was growing very popular off his most bumbling portrayal and was headed in that direction through the games. And he took notice. They viewed him as a punchline. So he'd show him just how K. Rool, the Kremlin commander, could be.
Soon
Yeah, get him,
Donkey
man.
Kong and his pretty little island.
Is this the 3D
will
Donkey
be
Kong game?
No more.
After
Blow up the
losing his
island.
island home, K. Rool only found it fitting to return the favor. Returning
I love the little animation of him just sort of like, you know, his fingers just going in and out. Yes, my evil, nefarious plan is all coming together.
to kinghood, he tracked down
Even
the
has a little
greatest,
tattoo.
most powerful
You have
Kremlin
to.
in the world, a towering behemoth capable of crushing an entire island in moments. But then K-Lumsy saw how cute all the little monkeys were and didn't wanna. So K. Rool
Aw.
had him imprisoned and brought along as a backup plan. So instead, the reptilian regent recruited
dude.
a new chief technician, a weasel named Snide, and worked to rebuild
Weasel named
Crocodile
Snide.
Isle from the ground up. And at its heart,
Oh,
K.
okay. So that's why it's like this mechanized version. I see. Because it gets absolutely destroyed in Donkey Kong Country 2. This was the Kremlin Island that I was always familiar with. Or at the very least as a casual looking into the series. Like, this is what I would recognize as being that.
Rool would construct a new weapon, the Blastomatic, a massive laser that could wipe an entire island off the map if fired. But K. Rool grew wary of Snide's knowledge, stole his engineer's blueprints, and banished him.
He seemed in DK64 like he was at wit's end. Like, it's gone from we're kidnapping people and we're chopping down your trees and we're stealing your bananas to
We're
I'm
blowing up
aiming
your
a
island.
nuke at your island.
Yeah.
And you better hope that there's a malfunction, which there is in the opening cutscene.
No! No!
The king would have to wait for his revenge for his minions to repair. But that's more than fine. It was just a
In
matter
all
of
due
time
time.
before Donkey Kong would feel his wrath for everything that was taken from him.
While you'll be busy looking for your precious golden bananas and flea-bitten friends, I'll be preparing my lizard-flavored surprise.
I've always viewed the plot of Donkey Kong 64 to almost be the culmination of everything the Donkey Kong Country trilogy set up. It entails you rescuing several Kongs. It has you retrieving some form of a banana horde. And it sees K. Rool coming back in this mechanical facsimile of Crocodile Isle.
Inspired by James Bond villain Blofeld, complete with Claptrap Lapcat,
Yep.
he is utterly self-confident, in control, and above all else, cruel. Every new stage is punctuated with K. Rool viewing the Kong's progress, looking forward to their failures, hoping they'll waste more time with these pitiful collectibles for his laser to charge.
Neuron activation.
And should the player ever quit out of the game, should they ever let K.
Are
Rool
you
win?
sure?
I think Rare may have liked bullying children, because you would quit the game and they're like, you.
Without a doubt, they love bullying children. And me, specifically. Do you know how many times they put like one little enemy just at a random moment right at the very end of their level just to catch you off guard because you're like, oh, there's the door, there's the sign saying that's the exit. It's time to rush in. Oh, damn it. I got God. Now I have to go back to the halfway point again. There are so many instances of that. And I've fallen for a few of them already. And I'm sure to fall for them yet again in the future.
Haven't beaten it yet, so we're gonna show you Donkey Kong Isle getting nuked. And like, it was terrifying.
Donkey Kong's blood is on my hands, Mom. I can't do my math homework.
As the Kongs reclaim more and more of their family and horde, the king becomes more frustrated, more unhinged, threatening the life of a boss who failed him and even following a Kremling attempting to escape his mad reign before snuffing out his hope, executing his minion with a massive claptrap. His maniacal majesty is at his most rotten in this game, only let down by his need to stay above all others and the constant incompetence of the exhausted and terrified Kremling crew.
These poor dudes.
The Kremlings are so scared and overworked, they don't have time to prepare a late-game boss fight, so they make a giant cardboard cutout of K. Rool and equipped him with a laser gun and a really loud speaker for them to laugh into, and tried killing the Kongs with that.
Oh my god, these poor dudes.
But ultimately, it's this self-reliance that costs him everything. Both K. Lumsy and Snide side with the Kongs after their prior employers mistreated.
Yeah, no shit. And yet, even another parallel to Void Kong, where I think all the people who were working for Void Kong were just kind of there for the paycheck, and they didn't really like the guy because he was just so hateful towards everybody around him. But in this game in particular, he does seem so much more menacing. However, he's still kind of menacing in that evilishly cartoonish way that I think still goes along with the tone of the rest of the series. Just a little bit differently. I do very much like him in this sort of role, though.
Treatment, opening up new worlds for the Kongs to explore and awarding the Kongs golden bananas in exchange for blueprints for the old Blast-O-Matic. Snide is especially a thorn in K. Rool's side, as when the Kongs finally do show up to his doorstep, K. Rool demands that they fire the big laser, even if it will wipe them all out too. Destroying Donkey Kong once and for all is more than worth a second destroying my own homeland. But for every one of Snide's blueprints that the Kongs were able to recover, the wily weasel will hack into the big cannon and delay its firing sequence.
But even when you get so many, you still have to do Hideout Helm with that timer right there on your screen, ticking down to your demise. And it doesn't matter if you have the minimum amount of minutes or the maximum amount of minutes. That, coupled with his laughter, as the timer is slowly going down and you're trying to work your way through that level, that is terrifying.
The moment you're about to confront the big croc, K. Rool flees into a tiny airship, only for the Kongs to free K. Lumsy and for him to swat his little alleged brother out of the sky by accidentally tripping over a rock.
No!
Humiliated, ousted, betrayed, and backed into a corner by his enemies, K. Rool is forced to accept that he isn't above it all and takes on the DK crew himself. If you won't let him prop up his ego, he'll give you a fight where everyone is praising his name.
You're actually going to box with him?
Surrounded by cheering fans, taking you on 5 versus 1 in a 10-round show match,
5
King
versus
Crusher
1.
K. Rool enters the ring to reclaim his
Giga
dignity
Chad.
and the title of undisputed ruler of these islands.
It's always so funny at the juxtaposition of King K. Rool as a brutal, bloodthirsty maniac and King K. Rool as a funny little fella.
The battle's just so fun. I love the like little interstitial cutscenes of the two like referee Kremlings who are always slamming the bell, so he gets saved by the bell every time and doesn't get knocked out. He has been failed by science, and he's been failed by his grand plans for revenge. He has nothing left to him except to just use his raw strength.
He's here to prove that he's inherently better. And as always the case, falls to the power of teamwork and guile.
The K. Rool boss fight is still one of the best designed and conceived aspects of that game when they were bringing in rare staffers. That's what Greg Mayles contributed input on that boss fight, so I think some of his pedigree is definitely apparent.
DK takes to the turnbuckles of the ring, loading himself into barrel cannons and hitting the hedonist heavy when he's playing to the crowd. Diddy then follows it up, flying into the rafters and shooting out the ring's spotlights until 4 of them come crashing down on K. Rool's noggin.
That's really cool that, well, we don't know the rest of the crew, but it seems to be that the gist of this is going to be everybody's using their unique mechanic that they have, that they've used throughout the entire game to platform through different levels in this one boss fight together. And that's definitely how you have to do the whole teamwork thing. Because, yeah, these people are important to the final victory. And the way that they can be important is to do the one thing that they can do. Only they can do.
The last of these is so stubborn that the beastly boxer doesn't have time to remove it from his head, so he'll fight Lanky Kong by blindly running around the ring with a spotlight on his head and slip on banana peels Lanky sets up and break his butt. But his ass has been so thoroughly thrashed that spamming his ground pound leaves him in horrible pain, letting
goodness.
Who decided one of the phases needed to be Tiny Kong shrinking down into his shoe and fighting his toes?
And after that totally normal thing that happened, K. Rool tries to use his invisibility trick again, only for Chunky Kong to grow to giant size to meet K. Rool on his own level and finally deliver a knockout punch to the big bully.
Okay, why does King K. Rool have the ability to go invisible? Has this ever been explained? Because we first saw this in Donkey Kong Country 2, right? Where does he have cloaking technology or something? Or is that just like an inherent ability to the guy?
It is a complete and utter dressing down of the Kremling King. The stature he'd tried so hard to build up all game eroding as the Kongs take him and his ego apart. He even tries to get up and beat the Kongs after the fight's over, but is distracted by the power of Hamana Hamana Awooga and fails to notice Funky Kong ride up with a bazooka that kicks his butt so hard K. Rool flies right out of the game.
Damn.
In one fell swoop, King K. Rool was re-established, made as threatening as possible, broken down, and reduced to his funniest, most pathetic state. A capstone of his entire career as Donkey Kong's villain in the most maximalist package possible.
It's really going
By this point, K. Rool wasn't just here to stay, he was Nintendo's second most prolific villain behind Bowser. The likes of Ganon and Ridley had long since been passed up by K. Rool's sheer density of appearances.
How does Ganon look like that? I guess that's his original form back in the OG games. In Ocarina of Time as well? Oh wait, wasn't there like a second phase of that boss fight? We're gonna have to do some more lore deep diving into Zelda at some point. Because like, I know the general gist of things and how the timeline sort of works. I think there's like a split somewhere, then they all come back together with Breath of the Wild or something like that. But that'll be fun to take a look at someday. As for Metroid, it's also on the list of things to check out, but we kind of did already. Took a quick look at the timeline. Forgotten a lot of the details though. I think I'll probably take a look at it again if I ever have the time to stream something like Metroid Prime 4. I think that just came out, pretty sure. And since I have a Switch now, I can actually play it.
And each one that wasn't a retelling of the same game but on Game Boy this time was a unique one that added more to the character, more fans, more kids cursing his name that they just couldn't beat him.
between Donkey Kong Countries 1, 2, and 3, and spin-offs like Diddy Kong Racing, and smaller main series games like the Land Trilogy, and upcoming things like Donkey Kong Racing. There was an evolving and continue to be evolving Donkey Kong franchise that was something that was building out of Nintendo. It was one of their big best-selling things. If you're interested in this character, you're interested in the world, this feels special. Kind of builds up a mythos about King K. Rool. He just has to be pushed toward even higher levels of absurdity.
The future was bright as a new generation of Nintendo console entered the market. And K. Rool would gladly keep riding along as the eternal enemy of the beloved Donkey Kong franchise. And then everyone decided, actually, we hate Donkey Kong.
Apparently so, yeah. That's what happened. We don't care about it anymore.
So the Rare buyout, the 2002 purchase of Rare by
Of course, it's fucking Microsoft. Why? It's always Microsoft. Well, not always, but more often than not when it comes to buyouts and video game studios dying, yeah. Throw EA and Activision in there too.
Microsoft. If you were a fan of Donkey Kong Country, Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker, it represented almost a divorce. It was this seismic fracturing of the fandom. Rare wanted the financial security of being owned outright by Nintendo. Nintendo did have a stake in Rare, but they didn't own them outright. And Nintendo was going through their own changes at the time, leadership changes in both Japan and Nintendo of America. And it was probably just absolutely the worst timing. I don't think anybody was at fault, but ultimately Nintendo declined to purchase Rare, and Rare opened themselves up to the next bidders, and there were several, EA at one point.
Oh, please, dear God, no. I literally just mentioned it, oh. Also, didn't Microsoft cancel the new Perfect Dark game that they had teased at some point? I forget which Game Show Awards I was looking at, but I thought that looked pretty neat, I guess. I think it got canceled or something like that. It's really unfortunate, though, that this was a timing thing that was sort of out of their hands. Because, yeah, this is pretty big. It's deciding the future of your company. And relevant to this video, the fate of this franchise.
And ultimately, they went with Microsoft for the newly minted Xbox platform. And all of a sudden, Donkey Kong no longer had a studio, no longer had a developer to call home.
All of Rare's characters and locations made for the Donkey Kong and Star Fox franchises were turned over to the Big N, giving them the rights to K. Rool, the Kremlings, and this pig with a nipple ring that you didn't notice until now. The DK franchise was orphaned, and rapidly, its status degraded among Nintendo fans.
That's definitely the time when perceptions and attitudes towards the franchise started to change. In fact, in the years that followed the buyout, a lot of these same gaming magazines started retroactively claiming that, the Donkey Kong games were never great to begin with. They were just overrated, and people only liked them because of the graphics.
This was a GameSpy review of Donkey Konga from the early aughts, excerpting here. Strangely enough, my biggest complaint about Donkey Konga isn't anything that has to do with that gameplay. Instead, it's the fact that Nintendo continues using Rare's horrible Donkey Kong character designs. I mean, seriously, this is a great game. Why am I being forced to look at Diddy Kong while I play it? Or frickin' King K. Rool?
Nani?
Now, if you are a fan of Donkey Kong Country, and you are already dealing with the uncertainty of the future of your favorite series, and the characters therein, and all of a sudden you now have to defend it among your fellow Nintendo fans, well, that is quite the growing pain to have.
Has game journalism ever been good? I'm going to assume no, not really. There's probably like a few select people who have usually good opinions on things. But I think ultimately, like, you just gotta play the game yourself. Especially nowadays with how hostile, like, even community reviews can be. Like, there are so many games on Steam that I really enjoy and are very good, but there's just a lot of hate around a specific thing about said game. And so you'll see the Steam reviews on the side being like mostly negative or overwhelmingly negative, even though it's really not that big of a problem and ultimately things just gotta fix itself over time, but those reviews never go away. And I think the majority of people definitely aren't going to be scrolling down to actually read what the reviews say. Instead, they're just going to see the score and be like, I think I'm going to pass.
An alleged quote from Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto was tossed around, sourced to a May 1995 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, stating, "Donkey Kong Country proves that players will put up with mediocre gameplay as long as the art is good."
What the hell?
Donkey Kong as a franchise went from an all-star to overrated. Perhaps most succinctly represented by this review of a Game Boy Advanced remake of Donkey Kong Country 3 by the UK's Nintendo official magazine. The appeal was always the graphics, be honest. Now the looks have faded, and you can see that she was never that interested in the first place.
What? What the fuck are these people on? Have they played the game? Oh my goodness. Okay, my main appeal of the game, well, I can imagine the graphics being really darn good for the time that it was released in. And I still think they hold up till today. I much prefer the stylized look that they went for, because it gives the series quite an iconic feel to it. But yeah, if you see this art style, it's Donkey Kong. Like, you're not going to recognize it as anything else, which is a lot more than you could say for many other games out there nowadays. But the gameplay is really solid. I don't know what these people are on about.
King K. Rool was hardly immune from the effects of everything around him turning rotten. His first playable appearance in Diddy Kong Pilot was taken away from him, being retooled into a banjo racing game. He appeared in Donkey Konga as a cameo in a whack-a-mole minigame and an icon in Konga 2. He was the main villain of the 2003 edition of Camp Hyrule, a web browser-based event for kids with a Nintendo account and nothing to do for a week in August. He appeared in the Game Boy Advance remakes of the country titles. Those are still good. They bomb him at the end of DKC 2 now. Funky, that's a war crime.
Sorry, dude.
And he appeared as the main villain of two handheld exclusive titles by Payon, DK King of Swing and DK Jungle Climber. These featured brand new plots by King K. Rool as he steals a bunch of medals and calls himself the Jungle Hero. And then DK beats him in a climbing race, beats him up. He says this, and he was playable. Jungle Climber has the Kremlin commander steal the legendary crystal bananas from Planet Plantain, using this awesome power to make his minions a little bigger and fuel some robots.
Holy.
And then make himself bigger. While it's nice to see Crud not entirely forgotten, these titles do very little story-wise other than introduce an alien banana people who talk in Banana Fana Faux Fana language and state that K. Rool hates bananas actually. But most damning of all, Nintendo just did not seem to know what to do with Donkey Kong.
Yeah, it's almost like Rare isn't here anymore. The people behind the games who knew the characters and what fans wanted from them, they're not here. This is really sad. What is going on? We had so much potential here. I felt like if you would ask any Donkey Kong fan at the time, they could probably pinpoint what the next game would need. Or how people felt in general about the series, but I guess maybe there were all those reviews out there at the time, and maybe they were listened to, and so a lot of gameplay decisions were made in order to make sure that these valid quote-unquote complaints weren't there. But yeah, it really feels like we've lost all sense of direction when it came to, well, at least King K. Rool in the sense of how to utilize him as a character. Probably also the other Donkey Kong characters too.
Nintendo was kind of putting it in a spin-off limbo for a while. It was either no games or spin-off games, or Donkey Kong showing up in like a Mario game. Donkey Kong never really left as a character. He was always there, to remind you that he was an IP.
He doesn't have a new
A lot of
game.
people who grew up during the GameCube era started to see Donkey Kong as not its own distinct brand, but just an appendage of Mario, just a Mario spin-off character.
The big DK platformer for Nintendo's GameCube was Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, a high-octane rhythm action game controlled entirely using the DK Bongos peripheral.
This is this brand new Nintendo team where they're getting experimental, they're getting wild. These are like hungry young developers that are at the top of their game. And what's the first game that they want them to make? It's not Mario, it's Donkey Kong. They were trying, they were throwing everything out there for DK.
It's an innovative way to play a Donkey Kong game or even have a Donkey Kong game, but it wasn't really what people wanted at the time. And I think that led to the series just not being taken seriously.
Right before the game's release, director Yoshiaki Koizumi gave an interview to IGN, stating, "All of the characters outside of Donkey Kong and the banana are completely original. We don't really feel the past look of Donkey Kong was fresh enough for today. We really gave our new development team the chance to really create something unique and stylish. We didn't need a superfluous story for this, did we?"
Even if that smug-sounding interview hadn't come out, I mean, there was just nothing for me there that really had nothing to do with Donkey Kong, aside from the fact that, like, DK himself was in it, but none of the other familiar elements that I loved were in it at all. DK's cool, but I'm not going to feel obligated to play this game just because of him alone.
That is completely fair. Because once again, we have forgotten the heart and the soul of the series that got fans hooked in the first place, in exchange for, new and experimental gameplay, which I do admit, that's a pretty neat idea. But we really just ended up stripping these characters from their original source and just plastering it onto this new experimental project that we have. Because we don't really know what we're going to do with this. I got no idea. And that's probably why there's so many characters within the Donkey Kong lore that are kind of forgettable. Unfortunately so. Because if we're going about it with this sort of mindset, then I can imagine there not being a lot of cohesion throughout the story or returning characters.
That lack of curation would continue through DK's future. Super Smash Bros. Brawl would expand its roster to include Diddy Kong as a playable character, but would represent the DK series through stages based on Jungle Beat and the original arcade DK title. K. Rool himself would be represented only by a single song and a trophy that would claim that his brother, Captain K. Rool, was the boss of Donkey Kong Country 2.
What you say?
This culminated in the 2008 release of Mario Super Sluggers, the king only having made 4 new physical appearances in the 10 years since Donkey Kong 64. Having to introduce himself and the idea of Kremlings to players who would have no idea who he was. But over this decade, Nintendo internally took notice of something. The best-selling titles for the Big Ape during that time were the handheld remakes of the 3 Donkey Kong Country games. Shigeru Miyamoto, entirely by chance, mentioned that he'd like a revival of Donkey Kong Country, as it had been requested by very loyal North American fans. In 2010, styled after the difficulty and flow of the classic platformers, Donkey Kong Country Returns was unveiled with thunderous enthusiasm.
The rumors were there. It was already getting out that Retro was doing Donkey Kong, and we began daring to dream again. So when we saw the trailer, there was obviously excitement and relief that it existed. And hearing very familiar music, seeing Donkey Kong swinging on a vine brought forth lots of emotions. And the biggest relief was seeing Diddy Kong. After all of the psychodrama that Jungle Beat conjured in the fandom, I think a lot of us were satiated with the fact that Diddy was in the game.
Nintendo-partnered Retro Studios studied all of the countries, all of the lands beforehand to make iterations and evolutions on their iconic barrel cannon and minecart sequences.
Awesome.
And after 11 years away, King K. Rool.
Did he finally show up again?
So this is something that we actually talked about fairly early on with Miyamoto-san. And we were really, we're getting together and we're like, well, what are we going to do about King K. Rool? Is he coming back? And we thought about it and we said, well, Does he really need to? Why don't we just come up with something completely new? And this time, make sure there are no crocodiles in there. And so I asked Retro to come up with some fresh new ideas, and that's when they came up with this new enemy concept of the Tiki.
Fans of DKC had gone through the classics, developed a new game, and once again, the Kremlin crew just wasn't fresh enough.
Oh, man.
I really enjoyed Donkey Kong Country Returns. A wonderful 2D platformer, one of the finest ever made, and it is a worthy entry in the series. However, I do question how much of a conscious effort was made to leave so much of Donkey Kong Country, the series heritage itself, in the drawer.
Yeah, why do we hate it so much? Like, all the reasonings that have been given throughout the reviews and whatnot just don't make a whole lot of sense to me. What sort of lens were we looking at the series from at the time that we were doing all this? Honestly, this might also be a combination of previous entries into the series sort of giving people that idea as well. That it's more just a spin-off series instead of like a main thing that was like the seller of the console, you know?
Nintendo point of view, if they're looking at the history of Donkey Kong, I don't blame them for looking at their game Donkey Kong, which is them creating the character Donkey Kong, as the touch point rather than Country 1.
Okay, there you go. I guess I should have guessed this. That Cranky Kong was like the original Donkey Kong, and that was made by Nintendo, and then Nintendo gave it to Rare, then Rare made Donkey Kong Country and expanded upon the lore and whatnot. But they still had Cranky Kong in there, maybe as like a homage to the original Nintendo game.
Look for the bad guy in the games that we have, and Donkey Kong himself is the bad guy, so don't do that, so make a new one. Like, I can imagine that being the thought process every time.
The fact that the only returning characters in Donkey Kong Country Returns are Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Cranky Kong, Rambi, and Squawks. 5 returning characters in a game that purports to be the return of the series. It felt odd.
You know, when they announced Tropical Freeze and it was kind of like, well, still no Kremlings, but we got these Vikings this time, I was kind of coming to accept that Retro was just maybe never going to use them. Like, even though Returns and Tropical Freeze were great and they were bringing at least some respect back to the series, it was still a rough time to be a fan of Rare's Donkey Kong games specifically.
I could see why then a lot of people were super hyped about King K. Rool being announced for Super Smash Ultimate. Plus the way that he was depicted in Smash Ultimate was like such a great depiction of the character that really understood his roots and what he meant for the series, as opposed to whatever we're doing here and just trying to forget about them altogether.
I didn't feel like we weren't going to see K. Rool again, really until Tropical Freeze, especially with the way they debuted Lord Frederick with a silhouette. And they're like, who could this be? It's like, well, it's a big fat silhouette, and you're not telling me who it is. So why would I assume it's just some random guy I don't know? And when that ended up not being K. Rool, it really felt like, oh, okay, for whatever reason, this character is a problem.
This aesthetic, these new worlds and characters silently became what DK was all about. Representing DK's world in Mario Kart stages, Mario Sports spin-offs, even drafts of a Universal Studios theme park based on Donkey Kong were modeled after Returns iconography and characters.
OG games
Donkey Kong was back, but he hadn't just moved on from his old foe. He didn't even acknowledge him.
Damn.
By the time of Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U's release in 2014, there wasn't much hope for any more outstanding Donkey Kong content. A stage based on Returns, perhaps— oh, yep, there we go, and— oh, hey! There's a critter in the side mode! That's really nice to see.
Hey!
But no new fighters, new environments beyond a jungle, not even a cameo-based assist trophy were offered for the 4th Smash Bros. Game.
I'd noticed there's franchises that the Smash developers like to create stuff for, and then there's Donkey Kong.
Then, something unusual happened. On April 1st, 2015, Nintendo President Satoru Iwata announced that a ballot would be posted on the Smash Bros. Website, asking fans which characters they would like to see added to the crossover fighting game. As a company, Nintendo played its cards very close to its chest, so having an open opportunity to suggest who to add to one of their largest franchises was unprecedented for the company.
Yeah.
And it's here where the Kremling campaign truly began.
So Smash 4, it releases in late 2014. At that point, it was...
Well, this is also such a direct way to tell the company, we want King K. Rool back, not just for Smash, but as a character for the series, to bring back Donkey Kong.
Known that he was not going to be on that roster. I'd launched the Kremling Campaigner Twitter account before there was any knowledge that there would be DLC in the game, putting out a plea of desperation of like, please, somebody at Nintendo, these treehouse people that are just lurking on here, hear me. We sure would love to have this great character in the game. And you know, at that point, you know, thinking his future might just hinge on that happening. Every single time we would have a new supporter come into that thread, me and multiple other people would jump at the chance to post the Donkey Kong Country cartoon song, One of Us.
Cause you're one of us, you're mean and green, scaly sheen, can't you see you're one of us?
And in that OP, I would put the cutthroat list. I think it grew to somewhere in the ballpark of 1,200 people over time. Eric and I had gotten to be friends through shared forum posting on K. Rool's behalf. And then the Smash ballot fell into our laps, and we ended up having built-in infrastructure to get the good word out there about the game.
K. Rool was often dismissed in Smash speculation as an irrelevant character. Someone who hadn't made an appearance period in like 7 years to that point, and hadn't been the final boss of a mainline game in 15. But fans weren't about to let their favorite baddie roll over and die. He was merely an expert at playing dead.
I saw it less as an opportunity to get more votes in his name and more to get more diverse arguments in his favor directly to Nintendo.
K. Rool always stood out to me as unique in that he would be the only heavyweight that could use multiple projectiles, like the boomerang toss and the cannonballs, and of course the poor DK representation in Smash.
As did sort of this idea of him as a cohesive personality, which I don't think is necessarily something that was known to people outside of the Donkey Kong fan base at the time. If your last word on the character is some random IGN article you never would appreciate, but that we certainly knew, and we had a direct line to Nintendo to say so, and we
100%.
damn well we're going to take that opportunity.
Clips from the television show spread around like wildfire, over-the-top performances endearing those who'd never gotten to experience the character before. Memories of all the fights against the Kremling King and all the cool things he could bring into a fighting game, all buoyed up by Donkey Kong himself making a big recovery. The leader of the bunch had been revisited after the country returned. Memes of his coconut gun firing in spurts, spreading far more than they were decried as the worst music ever in a video game a decade earlier. And actually, Miyamoto never hated them. That quote was a thing that didn't exist.
Yeah.
And that Koizumi interview about DK characters not being fresh enough? Mistranslated. The entire situation was one massive misunderstanding.
I was successfully gaslit that like K. Rool wasn't that big of a deal, that he was just like Wart from Super Mario Bros. 2, and I was a victim of the internet. I was a young mind radicalized to believing that the Crocs didn't matter that much.
In my circle of friends, I knew we all liked K. Rool, but there was this feeling that, like, look, the rare stuff you like, it has a fan base. There was a moment in time it was really beloved. It's not the main thing people like anymore. Turns out it actually was.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Because all these different games that come out that don't take that into consideration just make other people feel like this is the series now. Like, oh, the things that I love, they're just gone. I guess we're just going to be a niche fandom from here on in. Legitimately, this marketing is just gaslighting people into thinking King K. Rool never existed.
I think that just kind of tells you a narrative can take hold, and the people who disagree with it might feel too disempowered to speak up, because then all of a sudden the narrative was like totally reversing polarities, and it's like now I'm seeing all these people talking about how good Donkey Kong Country is and how we should get its main villain into Smash because he was so cool and awesome, and it's like, yeah, okay, I've been like, what? Like, this is how I felt my whole life, but where were you people?
In all tallies measured by fans, K. Rool was a front runner. speedrunner. He had a real chance of not just settling it in Smash, but making a statement to Nintendo directly that Donkey Kong fans were all still here and ready to celebrate what had left them so long ago. And in return for their support, on July 31st, 2015, they skinned him and made him a hat for your mate.
I woke up and I saw like the maximum number of notifications on my Smashboards account, and I knew something had gone either very, very well or very, very poorly.
Other highly performing ballot characters like Crom and Lloyd Irving were given costumes in the same pack as K. Rool. And on December 15th, 2015, Bayonetta was announced as the winner of the ballot out of all realizable characters.
Bayonetta got into the game, but you can't add Mai Shiranui. Why? For all the good boys and girls out there, come on, be on Bayonetta here. Whatever.
It was confusing, and I didn't want to entirely give up hope, but for whatever reasons, they didn't want to use him. Maybe it's just because they don't see a future for him in the Donkey Kong franchise at all, and so they see no point in bringing him back.
We thought that the door had been slammed on K. Rool. We knew what sort of effort we had put in, and we didn't think that it had been listened to, that there was a decision against putting K. Rool in.
The Kremlings would go silent again, but this time, fans still held out hope.
I mean, I thought the world was coming to an end, but once I had time to recoup and collect my thoughts, it felt like a acknowledgement that, well, we can't include K. Rool as DLC, but yeah, we know he's popular, we want him back. They also brought back some of his characteristics from the Rare era as well. Like, they gave him his golden belly back, because I don't think anybody at Nintendo even realized when they redesigned him initially that it was supposed to be golden belly armor and not an actual belly, so...
Years would continue to pass, the most acknowledgement the big man receiving being a street sign named after him in the New Donk City area of Super Mario Odyssey. And as a new Nintendo console released, a new Super Smash Bros. Game appeared on the horizon. But one with a catch. This...
Honestly, maybe someday I should just get the gang together and we can watch all the Smash reveals. I mean, it's a fighting game. And we're super into that right now. Plus, I don't think I've seen all of them. I've kind of just like seen them in passing, or people getting hyped, or like my favorite YouTubers reacting to it and stuff like that. But never really checked them out.
Would be the ultimate Smash Brothers, containing every single previous fighter in the series' history, and new roster slots would be incredibly limited.
Right before Ultimate's first reveal trailer, there were a lot of these quote-unquote insiders teasing Ridley. And I was like, wait a minute, okay, Ridley's in the game.
Now, we've been told that Ridley was too big. And we were told after that Ridley was specifically popular in the West. And I'm like, oh? What
on earth is stopping K. Rool? There was nothing that anybody could credibly put in his path, as it were, other than he is not in any quote-unquote new and relevant games. He cannot be used to market new and relevant games.
Before a Nintendo Direct on August 8th, 2018, the song Bloody Tears was leaked on the Super Smash Bros. Website.
We all kind of just accepted that Simon Belmont was going to be the big reveal. But then
Simon was the reveal, right?
Things started to get more interesting. There was a shot where Diddy and DK were standing on a battlefield, and there's like a gap in between them, and it looks like something is going to come down from the sky. A lot of people were freaking out, thinking that K. Rool was going to come down and it was going to deconfirm him as an assist trophy. But then we just got the banana gun instead.
Dead silent in there, and the first post when that banana is shown as an item is, that scared the shit out of me. It wasn't until the very end when the shaking, I was like, I didn't know what range of characters could have elicited that. I certainly know King K. Rool could be one of them.
Splash cuts of heroes facing their greatest rivals appeared on the screen.
Wait a minute. Are they really gonna...
And then Donkey Kong's big yawning mouth shows up, and then the waterworks start, because I know what I'm about to see.
Everyone was in a state of not quite letting themselves believe it.
Jaw on the floor.
My brain just completely went into another level of existence. like my vision blurred. There's no possible way.
Bruh.
And I just remember Jeff saying, "Oh, you, this, no." We had become so pessimistic that Jeff had actually believed that it was not K. Rool.
I see, so that's how why they did the trailer like that.
I've ever felt in my entire life.
It took a decade, but not only was King K. Rool back, he was one of the very few newcomers with entirely original movesets to be introduced in the base roster of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Noted specifically because of his huge amount of fan support.
The fact that they brought in everything from the blunderbuss, complete with him putting on his Captain K. Rool hat, as if he cannot use this blunderbuss otherwise.
Without
the fact
it,
that he used his backpack helicopter
Yo,
from
that's
DKC
from 3, yeah.
At a time when DKC 3 references felt so far-fetched, we were getting this. He had his boxing glove. His final smash was the Donkey Kong 64 Game Over.
Oh my god, okay, I see. It's all coming together now. We checked out the King K. Rool video about his Smash stuff, but like now we're actually getting to see the lead up to that and why it meant so much to so many people. And I'm going through the series and experiencing it for myself as well. So heck yeah, that's really fun. It's really nice that they took all of these things that the fans would love and then put them into this one character and adapted it so well. It's almost like listening to the feedback would have produced a lot more positive results than whatever we were doing before.
Green finally paying off, and you've seen the destruction of Donkey Kong Island. Everything about K. Rool and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate felt like it had been what we had wished for so long ago.
But all of this is secondary compared to his one central mechanic, a bulging bulletproof belly. A large swath of K. Rool's attacks, even one of his taunts, have armor specifically on the rotund regent's belly. He's even got a counter and a projectile reflector with his down special based around it. So much emphasis was placed on his gut, armor, and ability to turn things around. K. Rool didn't just feel powerful, he felt like a playable boss fight. If you didn't know what's coming and how to handle it, he would overwhelm. And even if you had the knowledge check, if he got you in a bad position, you were in for a world of hurt.
The way that his animations get like so stiff, where like the back air is like absolutely terrifying, but the up air is absolutely hilarious. They're really kind of like getting the vibe of K. Rool right, where he is silly but menacing at the same time.
We talked about this during the other video from Designing For that we checked out, but the way the animations work means so much to conveying what the character is about. Having both those serious and the scary moments, plus the absolutely hilarious and funny moments, is really what embodies this character. And the fact that they were able to animate it in such a way to convey that without people like even really having to know anything about the guy means that they did such a great job. And it's just so fascinating seeing them try to translate characters that aren't traditionally in a fighting game into a fighting game scenario and what moves they would use.
Having his iconic moves mapped to a few specials, it feels natural to Super Smash Bros. And referential at the same time.
But it wouldn't be K. Rool if failure wasn't mixed into the brew. If you spam his best options, his belly will shatter from taking too much damage, stunning him in place. Or his crown could be stolen and used in ways unfathomable to his psychological dependency on putting it back on his head at all times. K. Rool was the full breadth of his character, crushing strengths and predictable weaknesses going hand in hand. And it never once compromised his sense of self or made him less of a blast to play.
The one thing I had always been afraid of if he did get added to Smash is that he would be portrayed as some kind of monstrous animal, the brute, who just kind of like bit people and scratched at them with his claws and stuff. But no, obviously he had technology, and even if he didn't like talk, you can just tell in his expressions. He's got a lot going on in that brain of his. He was very much like alive. He was recognizable to me. He was the character that I knew and loved.
He even added to his characterization, cape torn torn from years of isolation, dashing on all fours to mimic his rival Donkey Kong, mirroring the big ape's most iconic moves down to the frame data, even adding a rap to his theme song to show DK up on the mic. The king was a mix of menace and cartoonishness that made him stand out even amongst as massive of a cast as Ultimate. And his fans in-game would chant not his name, but the force that had brought him into it. In every way, K. Rool was made to be the most he'd ever been. Unhinged, cartoonish, vicious, and villainous. And fans, not just of the character, but of Smash as a whole, reacted in turn.
That trailer, that was the most viewed trailer of all the newcomers in the game by like a mile.
Really?
They're not even allowed to sit at the same lunch table as K. Rool. Even if you look at the DLC fighters, there's only 2 characters that had more popular trailers than him, being Banjo and Steve. That's pretty crazy company.
In Smash, the best thing is sort of how he improves with every subsequent developer who touches him, who cares. Nobody thought about the idea of giving him a belly counter. Nobody thought about him running on all fours Radigan style just to show how deranged he has become. We don't need to have Nintendo sanction him as a marketable, new and relevant character in a Donkey Kong game before he can appear as a gaming all-star. He already was a gaming all-star.
K. Rool was popular, so he was put in Smash. He wasn't put in Smash to become popular. It finally gave him the chance to like express that sense of like character.
Nintendo just didn't know. I didn't know. I was one of his biggest fans, and I didn't know how beloved he was because people, when not given the excuse to say it, and the Smash ballot gave people.
I mean, once again, we just had no place to talk about it, and all the popular media was how that the games were bad, and the games even avoided talking about him. So it's like, yeah, I understand that feeling of like, why? Of course you would think that way, but the reality is different. Thankfully, not all people are crazy.
That voice, and without it, I don't think Nintendo would know that he was a character worth reviving.
Nintendo didn't think that he had lasting cultural impact, right? And then to see that validation of like, he does matter to people, and we're actually going to make good on that now. It's a feeling that you don't get from anywhere else in the games industry.
A letter from K. Rool's fans was sent to game director Masahiro Sakurai and his team for bringing the king back, and actually got a response from Nintendo. For the first time in almost 2 decades, everyone was on the same page to celebrate one shining element that made the Donkey Kong series so special.
King K. Rool wins!
And then they didn't do anything with him.
No!
After working on Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Retro Studios moved on to develop a new property, leaving Donkey Kong without a dedicated dev yet again. They did release an enhanced Switch version of Tropical Freeze, and did reportedly consider adding King K. Rool as a secret additional boss fight, but Nintendo declined the pitch, wanting to save the king's return for Smash Bros. After this highest high, Donkey Kong fell into a deep slumber as a brand, even less coming out in this era than after the Rare buyout.
There were easier times and there were harder times. It was helpful to know from DK Vine's reporting that we had things to look forward to, that there were Donkey Kong fans within Nintendo of Japan who were going to make sure this series was in careful hands. And when this game drops, it is going to be beyond our wildest imaginations.
But fans had a spark lit under them. King K. Rool was worth celebrating, and if Nintendo wasn't gonna do it, they'd tell the tale themselves.
Wait, Fan Projects?
And I'll tell you the story of the mad pirate king who was destined for glory.
Oh, this one.
Fury, the king
damn, this looks so good.
It seems
just have a little bit of animation there?
Weren't quite up to scale.
How did the idea of Return to Crocodile Isle arise? It kind of all started with Martin and I's shared appreciation for the voice of Benedict Campbell.
Stuart and I met like a long time ago, like early 2010s. We were kind of residing in these familiar online spaces trying to get into voice acting. But through that, we kind of found an incredible friendship in our passion for animation and gaming, especially like the levels of storytelling that they would have. Back during the pandemic, I was doing a smaller project with Stuart and some others, kind of celebrating F-Zero's 30th anniversary. I think I kind of discovered my dream on wanting to become an animation producer. Stuart and I talked a lot about what we wanted to do next, and decided our next stage was to do an original animation. With how much K. Rool really meant to Stuart and myself, I really wanted us to spearhead something that impacted both of us and give something really unexpected.
One night, Martin and I are discussing the DKC animated series and how it was held in a relatively negative light recently due to early use of motion capture, and that it was kind of a real shame that folks in the court of public opinion didn't really appreciate the solid vocal performances from a lot of the cast. I mentioned to Martin that I'd stumbled upon a means to contact Benedict. Something inside me decided to go ahead and give it a shot and see if I got a bite. So 3 months pass and not so much as a nibble, and then out of the blue, we land this Marlin, and it's taken us for a Nantucket sleigh ride.
You've got the looks, the voice, the style! And let's not forget, I'm green.
And we were going through like different references and animators, and at one point went through the entries of the DKC Reanimated project and saw his contribution.
All right, here goes.
Lunkhead.
Yeah, no, Martin reached out to me, and like I just saw the email, like the idea, because you had Benedict Campbell on board to work with on the project. I'm like, this sounds like a super fun project. Like, I definitely have to be a part of this.
Our initial pitch was intending it to be like a parody of You'll Be Back from the musical Hamilton. And I am so glad to this day Alex pushed us against the idea.
He had suggested elevating things from more or less a mere cover of an existing song to a full-fledged original musical number. And once things fell more or less in place with Benedict, Martin and I began nudging some of the other legacy talent to see if there was any interest, and there was. And it just kind of kept snowballing from there until we reached critical mass with a capital K.
We were getting the ball rolling, getting stuff written, getting prepared for voice acting, like getting the story fleshed out. And I remember we kind of ran into this little snag, like getting the actors, getting the unions to kind of go along with this was a lot more complicated than we had anticipated. And I started thinking like, okay, I want a video for my YouTube channel. Because at that point, like I had done a lot of like the assets for the video. You guys had introduced me to Ailstorm.
It was kind of perfect timing when we were thinking about how to go about making it, and Ailstorm's album Curse of the Crystal Coconut featured the cover of Scurvy's Pirate Scorn track.
The day you mess with Scurvy, you wish you'll never more.
And like the idea just kind of started formulating in my head, like, you know, I could do a music video for this song.
Referencing not just the cartoon, but Donkey Kong Country 2, Donkey Kong 64, and even the fandom Smash Brothers speculation, Captain Scurvy's glorious conquest of Congo Bongo Island was animated with a passion for and attention to Donkey Kong's world that hadn't been seen in decades.
It was a fun video to make, and it's led to a lot of opportunities. Like I now pretty much work for Ailstorm officially now, which has been a lot of fun.
Hell
the Pirate
yeah,
Scorn
dude.
video, like it was a good like testing ground for Crocodile Isle to kind of see what was working, what wasn't, what changes I needed to make for the animation style.
Alex also introduced us to the maestro that would be Joshua David Mitchell. He just masterfully created what was our hieroglyphics of leitmotifs and little Frankenstein stitches of instrumental ideas that we used from the games.
I spent a lot of years quietly studying the DKC games, looking at old concept arts, scrapped enemy types, early developer notes, you name it. I'm also an entomologist and a herpetologist. I've worked hands-on with training crocodilians and learning their body language in the past. So this was kind of my contribution to the project, to bring a more grounded sense of realism to the world of DKC, while also telling a story that's in keeping with the pre-established lore. What happens when the schemes have run dry, and his perseverance is at a premium? In a sort of metafictional way, I felt that with the uncertainty of K. Rool's return, it might be interesting to explore a king who had exhausted all traditional means to fulfill his goals, left in a point of stasis, separated from his rival, his people, left with the decision to either wallow in that unfortunate reality or to create a new future for himself through reinventation.
I heard that a higher power determined that he, and by proxy us, were unfit to continue coexisting with our Kong rivals. Possibly
absence sows a hungry heart. Are you famished without your king? It seems you lot forgot the brand of cruelty that I bring.
Cruelty. See what you did there. But man, yeah, this is so fun. I'm really glad that this project opened up a lot of avenues to the people who worked on it as well. And you can really tell that the passion and the love for the series is really being put into here, because every single little detail that fans would recognize is here. Plus, it's just so well animated too. Like, this isn't some janky first-time animation project. This is just full production. And that makes me wonder why, I don't know, like the owners of this IP maybe didn't do anything like this with it. It feels like it would be a pretty easy W, but whatever.
The premise was basically, what if K. Rool did a Disney villain song, which was an art choice that took a lot in both imagery and writing, that really peers into the many ramifications K. Rool is appreciated by the fans, especially the mental implications. We studied a lot of different approaches, from Ratigan, Governor Ratcliffe, Judge Frollo, Joe the Fish, there's plenty of others, and somehow made this rock opera of many different genres almost reflective of K. Rool's many split personalities.
And still I fought it like a hero, spite the tragedy and travesty, and now I have returned with light and glory as your majesty, and your disgraceful prattle while I was off secluded with a mutiny. Ha! I'd have you executed!
Ben's vocal performance was the driving force. We really just wanted to build off of that. Like, it was really amazing watching him work. Like, the way he just kind of slipped into the character like it was nothing. Like, even though he hadn't done this character in years, nailing line after line.
With Benedict's case, he literally drove down from his area almost 2 hours one way to record with us.
I've never seen someone breeze through lines so effortlessly.
Remind me, if I ever were to kill myself, I could scale to the heights of your blind devotion and leap down towards your IQ!
We really wanted to do something incredible for the community and what K. Rool means for us.
Yikes,
the main aspect of K. Rool's character that I really wanted to focus on was his psychological profile. He's adapted and improved time and time again, but he is burnt out, either haunted by his mistakes or disguising his previous errors with a new identity each time.
Yeah, all these events that happen have to have some sort of consequence to the character. You have to acknowledge that and how that would change a person, right? A crocodilian in this sense. But I love that sort of exploration of the character. This is that cohesion to the story that is certainly missing during that whole like era of spin-offs of Donkey Kong games and whatnot. That there wasn't really anything to get attached to, or I guess that nostalgia factor of the character either, to really sell the games. It seems like such a basic concept that so many other IPs just fail to recognize. Although, in a different sense, I can also somewhat understand that, you know, when you're a big ship, the big ship is going to turn left or turn right. It takes a lot of time for that to happen, so all this stuff can sort of get lost to the wayside. But when you're more of like a smaller team, which I'm assuming this was, and just working on a fan project, then you can really get into those details more, with a lot more creative freedom behind it.
And I think it's very relatable for any creative going about their life. He sees his master plans as an art, making him feel any sort of relevance, both personally to him and in the meta sense for the fans.
I did this all for you! Want another funny part? I don't even like bananas! Am I enough for you now? Am I?
To me, K. Rool is failure. K. Rool is a lot of those insecurities we feel fester, that vanity, being imperfect, to still fail even when we want to improve and really grasp at something to feel special. And I really love putting the psychological spin to K. Rool's character, especially with his warped hallucinations being left up to the viewer's interpretation. I think that in its essence is both what I wanted to focus on in the animation and what really makes K. Rool so special.
Oh, poor dude.
It was a monument to a fandom that had lived in this story, with this villain and a vision that they had seen for him brought out in as glorious and extravagant nature as could possibly be mustered. A tour de force of independent animation just to say, we love the Donkey Kong world.
It was cool to see how many people that it reached, and like newcomers who weren't familiar with the character saying like, oh, this was kind of how I got introduced to this franchise. It's been really positive with both like longtime fans and newcomers.
It brought in such an audience with old generations and new generations alike, some even becoming fans of K. Rool immediately after. When you kind of just put that energy, how much something means to you, actually coming out of the airport in California to attend a Metal Gear convention. And coming out of the exit, there was a woman in her late 20s chain smoking on the side of airport entrance. And she caught wind of the K. Rool shirt, the same one Alex gifted me. And she just kind of yells across, is like, yo, is that K. Rool? And I was like, yeah, man, it totally is. She's like, holy shit, is that K. Rool? I love those gremlings. Oh my god, did you see the animated short they made on him? So wild, man. Love that shit. Yo, have you seen it? And I'm like, no, I haven't. I'll be sure to check it out. Oh yeah, gators.
That's
that is one heck of an encounter. Like, I'll check it out later, I guess. Man, it's awesome though to see like something that you created have such an impact on, I guess, the general populace, the general audience. It actually means something to people, especially for the fans of the series who've kind of been hung out to dry by Nintendo. That it just feels good to finally get the sort of acknowledgement for the character and some really cool characterization and exploration of themes behind the character and the setup that was there ever since the very first 3 games. Okay. Now, Pure did tell me that it was going to be very clear during the transition that we're going to be moving to Bonanza, that that's probably where I should end things there. So I think I will do so, and we'll get whatever reveal King K. Rool is going to have in Bonanza when we get there inevitably. Regardless though, love this video. This was kind of what I was looking for, to be honest, when I first checked out the initial King K. Rool video, but I know. I guess the title of it was already just specifically about King K. Rool and Smash. But it was really fun to see the history of the character throughout all the years and all the fan support behind it, the community and fan projects that kept this alive, and the whole Kremlin campaign. I never knew about that. But it's great that they finally got him into Smash and now into Bonanza. I can't wait to get there, but I'm gonna have to beat the guy in Donkey Kong Country 2 first. And probably 3, we'll say. Anyways, my dudes, thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed your time here. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Later, dudes.